Clara's hands were shaking as she reached for the spice jar that would change everything. At 95, she thought her days of cooking family dinners were over. The pain in her back had become so unbearable that even standing at the kitchen counter felt like torture. But what happened next in that kitchen on Thanksgiving morning would turn 40 years of chronic suffering into just a distant memory. 3 days. That's all it took. This isn't just another story about natural remedies. This is about a grandmother who accidentally stumbled upon something so powerful that it completely transformed her life when modern medicine had given up on her. If you've been struggling with back pain, if you've tried everything and nothing seems to work, if you're tired of feeling like your body is failing you, then you need to hear Clara's story. Before we dive in, hit that subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up. Trust me, you'll want to remember this channel when you see what Clara discovered in her own kitchen. Clara Morrison had made a decision that broke her heart. After 47 years in the same house, after hosting countless family gatherings, after creating memories in every corner of her kitchen, she was moving to assisted living. The back pain had won. For 4 decades, Clara had battled chronic lower back, pain that radiated down her legs and made simple tasks feel impossible. She'd tried everything her doctors suggested: physical therapy, pain medications, injections, even surgery. Nothing provided lasting relief. "I used to dance with my late husband every Sunday after church," Clara would tell her daughter Sarah. "Now I can barely stand long enough to make a cup of coffee." But Clara was determined to host one final Thanksgiving dinner. She wanted to pass down the family recipes to her granddaughter Emma, to share the stories behind each dish, to create one last beautiful memory in the kitchen that had been the heart of her home. The morning of Thanksgiving arrived cold and grey. Clara stood at her kitchen counter, surrounded by the familiar spices and ingredients that had served her family for generations. Her back was already screaming in protest, but she was determined to push through. She reached for the large container of turmeric, the golden spice that had been a staple in her cooking since she learned it from her grandmother decades ago. But as she lifted it, her arthritic fingers betrayed her. The container slipped, crashed to the floor, and sent bright, a yellow powder exploding across her kitchen tiles. Clara's first instinct was frustration. She was already exhausted, and now she had to clean up this mess. But as she knelt down, something remarkable happened. The golden powder had covered her hands completely. As she tried to brush it off, she began massaging it into her palms, and almost immediately she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: relief. The constant ache in her hands and wrists began to fade. The stiffness that made her fingers feel like rusty hinges started to loosen. Without thinking, Clara began rubbing the turmeric up her arms, onto her shoulders, and then, almost instinctively, she reached behind and pressed her turmeric-covered hands against her lower back. The sensation was like nothing she'd ever experienced. It wasn't just the warmth. It was as if something was actively working to calm the inflammation that had tormented her for so long. "What in the world?" Clara whispered to herself, standing there in her kitchen with turmeric-stained hands pressed against her back. For the first time in months, she could stand without wincing. For the first time in years, she felt hope. But Clara had no idea that she had just rediscovered a healing secret that her great-grandmother had brought with her from the hills of Kerala, India, over a century ago. What Clara didn't know as she stood in her kitchen that morning was that she had just activated one of nature's most powerful anti-inflammatory compounds. The turmeric covering her hands contained something called curcumin, a molecule that has been healing people for over 4,000 years. In ancient India, turmeric wasn't just a cooking spice, it was medicine. Healers called it Indian gold because they understood something that modern science is only now beginning to fully appreciate. This humble yellow root could calm inflammation better than many pharmaceutical drugs without the dangerous side effects. Traditional healers in India have known for millennia that turmeric could ease joint pain, reduce swelling, and restore mobility to aging bodies. They created pastes and poultices, just like Clara had accidentally done, because they understood that the skin could absorb these healing compounds directly into the affected areas. But here's what makes Clara's discovery even more remarkable. Modern research has now proven that curcumin works by blocking specific enzymes in our bodies called cyclooxygenase and lipoxygenase. These enzymes are responsible for producing inflammatory chemicals that cause pain, swelling, and tissue damage. When you have chronic back pain, your body is essentially stuck in a cycle of inflammation. Your muscles tense up to protect the damaged area, which restricts blood flow. Poor blood flow means less oxygen and nutrients reach the tissues that need healing. This creates more inflammation, more pain, and more muscle tension. It's a vicious cycle that conventional medicine often tries to break with powerful drugs that can damage your liver, stomach, and kidneys over time. But curcumin works differently. Instead of masking the pain, it actually addresses the root cause, the inflammation itself. It's like having a gentle, natural fire extinguisher for the flames of pain burning in your back. Dr. Janet Funk, a researcher at the University of Arizona, has spent years studying curcumin's effects on inflammation. Her research shows that curcumin can be as effective as some pharmaceutical anti-inflammatory drugs, but with none of the harmful side effects. But Clara's accidental discovery was about to become even more powerful, because she did something instinctively that multiplied turmeric's healing properties by more than 2,000%. As Clara continued preparing her Thanksgiving meal, she noticed the black pepper she'd been using for seasoning. Some of it had mixed with the turmeric on her hands, creating a paste that seemed to work even better than the turmeric alone. What Clara didn't know was that black pepper contains a compound called piperine, which dramatically increases the body's ability to absorb curcumin. Without piperine, most of the curcumin you consume just passes through your system without being absorbed. But with just a tiny amount of black pepper, your body can absorb up to 2,000% more of turmeric's healing compounds. This wasn't just luck. It was the wisdom of generations. Traditional Indian cooks had always combined turmeric with black pepper, not just for flavor, but because their ancestors had observed that this combination worked better for healing. As the day progressed, Clara noticed something extraordinary happening. The constant throbbing in her lower back was quieting to a whisper. The sharp shooting pains that usually struck when she bent over or reached for something had simply stopped. By evening, when her family gathered around the table, Clara realized she had cooked an entire Thanksgiving meal without taking a single pain pill. She had stood, bent, lifted, and moved through her kitchen with an ease she hadn't felt in decades. Her daughter Sarah noticed immediately. "Mum, you seem different today. You're moving like you used to." That night, Clara lay in bed staring at her golden-stained hands, wondering if what she'd experienced was real or just a temporary reprieve. She decided to test it again the next morning, but first she needed to understand exactly what she had done and how she could do it again. The next morning, Clara woke up expecting the familiar greeting of back pain that had started every day for the past 4 decades. She braced herself as she sat up in bed, waiting for the sharp reminder that her body was failing her. But the pain that usually grabbed her lower back like a vice wasn't there. Clara stood up slowly, almost afraid, to trust what she was feeling. The constant ache was gone. The stiffness had melted away. She could move freely without fear, without wincing. She walked to her kitchen, still hardly believing what was happening, and stared at the remaining turmeric scattered across her counter. Clara was a practical woman, and she knew she needed to understand exactly what she had done so she could do it again. Over the next 2 days, Clara became a detective in her own kitchen. She experimented, she took notes, and she discovered that her accidental remedy could be turned into a precise, powerful system. Here's exactly what Clara developed, the complete method that gave her back her life. Clara's Golden Relief Paste. The core formula. First, you need organic turmeric powder, 1 level teaspoon. Clara learned that quality matters enormously. The bright, vibrant turmeric from the health food store worked far better than the pale yellow powder she'd had sitting in her spice rack for years. Fresh turmeric contains higher levels of curcumin and essential oils that enhance healing. Next comes the secret multiplier, fresh ground black pepper. Just a pinch, maybe 1 to 8 of a teaspoon. Clara discovered that pre-ground pepper that had been sitting on shelves for months had lost its potency. She began grinding whole peppercorns fresh each time. The piperine in black pepper doesn't just help absorption, it also has its own pain-relieving properties. The third ingredient was something Clara had always used for cooking, but never thought of as medicine: extra virgin coconut oil. 2 tablespoons of cold-pressed, organic coconut oil. Curcumin is fat-soluble, which means it needs healthy fats to be properly absorbed through the skin. But coconut oil does more than just help absorption. It contains lauric acid and caprylic acid, compounds that fight inflammation and nourish damaged tissues. The fourth element came from Clara's garden: fresh ginger root. She grated about half a teaspoon of fresh ginger into her paste. Ginger contains gingerols and shogols, compounds that work synergistically with curcumin to reduce inflammation and improve circulation. When Clara added ginger, she noticed the warming sensation became more pronounced and the pain relief lasted longer. Finally, Clara added 1 teaspoon of raw, unprocessed honey. Not the processed honey from the grocery store, but the thick, golden honey she got from a local beekeeper. Raw honey contains enzymes and antioxidants that enhance healing, and it helps bind all the ingredients together into a smooth paste that spreads easily on skin. Clara's application method: the 3 times. Daily protocol. Clara discovered that timing was everything. She applied her paste 3 times each day, and each application served a different purpose. Morning application. Clara would make fresh paste right after waking up. She'd apply it to her lower back, her shoulders, and anywhere else she felt tension or discomfort. Then she'd put on an old cotton shirt and let the paste absorb for 30 minutes while she had her morning coffee. The morning application seemed to prepare her body for the day, preventing pain before it could start. Afternoon application. Around 2 p.m., when Clara used to experience her worst pain flare-ups, she'd apply the paste again. But this time, she'd also take a warm bath with Epsom salts while the paste was absorbing. The combination of heat, magnesium from the Epsom salts, and her turmeric paste created a powerful synergy that left her feeling completely refreshed. Evening. Application. Before bed, Clara would apply the paste 1 final time, but she'd add something extra: a few drops of lavender essential oil mixed in. The lavender helped her relax and sleep more deeply, and Clara noticed that the healing seemed to accelerate while she slept. The critical enhancement. Clara discovered. By day 2, Clara realized that the paste worked even better when she combined it with gentle movement. After each application, she would do simple stretches that her physical therapist had taught her years ago. The turmeric seemed to make her muscles more flexible and responsive to stretching. She would start with gentle neck rolls, then slowly arch her back while sitting in a chair. She'd finish with neater chest stretches while lying down. These movements, which had been painful before, now felt therapeutic and healing. Clara's additional natural combinations. Being a woman who had always relied on natural remedies, Clara began experimenting with other healing combinations. On particularly stiff mornings, she'd add a few drops of wintergreen essential oil to her paste. Wintergreen contains natural salicylates, the same pain-relieving compounds found in aspirin, but gentler and without side effects. When she felt inflammation in her joints, Clara would drink golden milk, warm almond milk with turmeric, black pepper, ginger, and a touch of honey, while her paste was absorbing. This gave her healing compounds from both inside and outside her body. On days when stress seemed to worsen her pain, Clara would add a pinch of ashwagandha powder to her paste. This ancient herb helped her body manage stress and seemed to enhance the anti-inflammatory effects of the turmeric. By the end of day 3, Clara was convinced she had discovered something extraordinary. The chronic pain that had ruled her life for 40 years was simply gone. Not masked, not temporarily relieved, but genuinely healed. But the most remarkable part of Clara's transformation was still to come. On the 4th morning, Clara Morrison made a phone call that shocked her entire family. "Sarah, honey, I need to cancel the movers. I'm not going anywhere." Her daughter's voice was confused, concerned. "Mom, what do you mean? We've already put the deposit down on the assisted living facility." "I mean, I don't need assisted living anymore," Clara said, standing in her kitchen without a trace of pain. "I feel like I'm 50 again." The transformation was so complete, so dramatic, that Clara's family initially thought she was having some kind of medical episode. How could someone who had been planning to move to assisted living because of chronic pain suddenly be pain-free? Dr. Martinez, Clara's physician for over 20 years, was equally skeptical when she came in for her next appointment, walking upright, moving freely, with a smile on her face that he hadn't seen in years. "Clara, what exactly are you doing differently?" he asked, reviewing her chart. "Your last visit you were discussing stronger pain medications. Now you look like a different person." When Clara explained her turmeric discovery, Dr. Martinez was initially dismissive, but as a physician who had watched her suffer for decades, he couldn't argue with the results standing in front of him. "I've been prescribing expensive medications and complicated treatments," he told her. "And you found relief in your spice cabinet." Dr. Martinez began researching curcumin more deeply and was amazed by what he found. Studies showing that curcumin could be as effective as some pharmaceutical anti-inflammatories. Research demonstrating that topical application could provide targeted relief without systemic side effects. Evidence that the compounds in turmeric could actually help repair damaged tissue, not just mask pain. Within a month, Clara had become something of a local celebrity. Word spread through her church, her community center, her neighborhood. People who had struggled with chronic pain for years began asking for her recipe. Emma, Clara's granddaughter, started documenting her grandmother's method. She photographed each step, recorded the exact measurements, and began sharing Clara's story online. The response was overwhelming. Letters and emails poured in from people around the country who had tried Clara's method. Margaret from Texas wrote that her hip pain disappeared after 5 days. Robert from Montana said his chronic shoulder pain was gone after a week. Dorothy from Florida claimed that Clara's method had given her back her independence, but perhaps the most meaningful validation came from Clara herself. 6 months after her kitchen accident, she was back to dancing. Not just moving without pain, but actually dancing with joy in her living room to the old songs she and her husband used to love. She was gardening again, cooking elaborate meals for her family, and had even started teaching a cooking class at the community center, where she shared not just recipes, but the healing wisdom hidden in everyday spices. Scientific research continues to validate what Clara discovered by accident. Studies published in journals like Arthritis Research and Therapy and the Journal of Medicinal Food have confirmed that curcumin can significantly reduce inflammation markers and improve mobility in people with chronic joint and back pain. But for Clara, the science is just confirmation of what her body already knew. Sometimes the most powerful healing comes not from a laboratory or a prescription pad, but from the wisdom that's been sitting in our kitchens all along. Today, at 95, Clara moves like a woman decades younger. She's not just pain-free, she's thriving. And her accidental discovery has become a beacon of hope for anyone who refuses to accept that chronic pain is just part of aging. Clara's story reminds us that healing doesn't always come from complicated medical procedures or expensive treatments. Sometimes it comes from rediscovering the wisdom that our ancestors knew instinctively, that nature provides powerful medicine for those who know where to look. The combination of turmeric, black pepper, coconut oil, fresh ginger, and raw honey created a synergy that modern medicine is only beginning to understand. Applied 3 times daily with gentle movement and patience, this simple method transformed 4 decades of suffering into freedom. If you're ready to try Clara's method, remember that consistency is key. Give your body time to heal. Start slowly, listen to your body, and be patient with the process. Your back pain doesn't have to be your life sentence. Clara proved that at 95, transformation is still possible. If Clara's story inspired you, if her method gives you hope, or if you're ready to try her golden paste for yourself, Let me know in the comments below. Share your own experience with natural pain relief. Your story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Hit that subscribe button if you want more stories like Clara's, real people finding real solutions using the healing wisdom that's been around for generations. And don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if it brought you hope. Sometimes the most powerful medicine is hiding in plain sight, waiting for us to rediscover what our ancestors always knew. Clara found her healing in a kitchen accident. Where will you find yours?